I am motivated by play. I am motivated by having fun. And I think that's pretty common for young people too. Like if you are consistently getting reinforcement that Boston, greater Boston area, like has more opportunity to meet people, to meet friends, to meet a partner, to have an experience, to have an Instagrammable moment, to like be in community, to be in a crowd, like why not move there?
Welcome to Seacoast Stories, a weekly podcast where we interview the people and businesses of New Hampshire and Maine. I'm Troy Farkas. I've produced some of the most popular podcasts in the world, and since moving to the Seacoast in 2023, I've fallen in love with the area and its inspiring people. And now I am on a mission to bring the Seacoast closer together, one podcast at a time. Today, we continue our month-long theme of celebrating the women of the Seacoast by talking to a woman who actually isn't from the Seacoast, but close enough. It's Corinne Benfield. She's the 32-year-old executive director of Stay, Work, Play, a nonprofit based in Manchester. Stay, Work, Play's mission is very simple. Their goal is to convince young professionals, which they define as ages 25 to 40, to stay in New Hampshire, to work here, and to have fun here. Corinne is perfectly suited for this role. After growing up in the Manchester-Bedford area, she attended the Savannah College of Art and Design in Georgia. She then moved to New York City to begin her career, only to come back to New Hampshire following a brief stint in the Big Apple. From there, she found a home at Manchester's Currier Museum of Art, working first in the cafe and then behind the desk. After that, Corinne led community partnerships for Manchester's Chamber of Commerce, where she learned firsthand from Mike Skelton, who currently heads New Hampshire's BIA, or Business and Industry Association. You'll hear Mike referenced a few times in this episode. After that, Corinne landed back at the Currier, albeit with a much fancier title, and then in late 2024, she took over as the executive director for Stay, Work, Play. In her role, Corinne travels across the state, speaking directly with young professionals at events like Pints and Policy, which she recently hosted at Portsmouth's Loaded Question in December. She learns what young people in the state struggle with, what their goals are, why they've ultimately decided to stay here, or why they're thinking about leaving for somewhere else. Additionally, she makes weekly trips to Concord to relay her findings to the state legislature so that the state can then figure out how to make New Hampshire attractive to the younger generations, which, for the state with the oldest workforce in the country, is kind of a big deal. Corinne and her very small team, that is, her one other full-time staffer, also assemble large pieces of data, like their recent Quality of Life report, and they also host the Stay, Work, Play Awards each fall, which is where I met Corinne last year. Each episode this month is presented by business coach Jennifer Wilder, and on this episode, Corinne and I discuss the issues facing young people in the state, like the housing crisis, the staggering costs of childcare, the lack of nightlife, and a dating scene that leaves something to be desired. Plus, the 3 changes Corinne would make if given a magic wand to solve New Hampshire's problems, some statistics about the Granite State that will shock you, and why her story is just about as New Hampshire of a story as they come. You'll see what I mean in a moment, but without further ado, here's Corinne Benfield. I like Manchester a lot. Anytime I bring up Manchester in conversation to people, it's the eye rolls, it's the cringe, and they cast all sorts of judgment and like, don't go there, go here instead. I've been to Manchester half dozen times at this point, and I get there and I walk around, I'm kind of like walking on eggshells, like, all right, like when's the bad guy? When's the boogie monster gonna come out and get me? Never happens. I always have a lovely time in Manchester. So as the cheerleader of New Hampshire and Manchester, can you tell me why Manchester is a great place to hang out at and why it's perhaps undeserving of this reputation?
Oh, I love this question because I am a Manchester stan. I stand on business for my hometown. I love Manchester. You know, Manchester is our queen city in New Hampshire. It is the economic heartbeat of our state. And we have some incredible businesses in Manchester and business owners and, you know, young people and creatives and artists and institutions that like make up the fabric of the city. And we have big city problems sometimes. And so I think New Hampshire in general, especially folks that grew up here, see Manchester as like the big bad wolf, right? Like every other part of New Hampshire is so quintessentially lovely and idyllic and classic New Hampshire. And then you go to Manchester and it's like, oh my goodness, where am I? There's two-way traffic downtown and there's the mills, and it just can get, I think, a little bit confusing for folks. And it's easy to point the finger at Manchester as like that gritty urban center that, defines New Hampshire. But, I actually think Manchester's done a really great job in recent history to lean into like that grit, but recontextualize it as a positive, because it truly is. Manchester is one of the hottest housing markets in the country. We have an incredible school system. We have an incredible business community in Manchester, great city leadership. I love living in Manchester because I live in the South End. So I'm a little bit more like removed from city life. It actually feels like I live in like a rural area, but then it's like 15 minutes to downtown, and we have an incredible craft cocktail scene in Manchester.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm a big espresso martini guy right now. Where's the spot?
Oh my goodness. You're putting me on the spot. I love espresso martinis as well.
Okay, great.
So I'm not going to give you like a end all be all answer, but I'm going to give you like high hitting like highlights for your next Manchester vacation.
Absolutely.
It's going to be a vacation. You're going to hit all of the cocktail bars. So starting at Stash Box, which is right on Elm Street. They have an incredible espresso martini. I like my espresso martinis dark.
As a black coffee girl.
Yes.
That checks out.
But you can do it with tequila. I'm saying it's good.
Yo, I've had those before in New York City. Completely changes the game.
It does. It's weirdly better.
Yeah.
So definitely like a tequila espresso martini from Stash Box. And then we're going to throw you over to 815, which is right across the street. They used to be a speakeasy. They still have speakeasy vibes, but great service there. An amazing espresso martini. And then Industry East as well, which is on Hanover Street. It's small. It's like smaller than this room, like 60 seats, but it's literally like going to your like friend's basement bar and hanging out. Like everyone knows each other. And I think that's the beauty of Manchester, is that we have this air of like being, big city problems, but it feels like small town because, like everyone knows each other. The downtown businesses are so collaborative, so supportive, and just like really like integrated. And yeah, there's just a lot of great momentum, but I don't like to show my Manchester bias too much because
I'd say you are.
I love Manchester, but let me tell you, don't get me wrong. If I could move to Portsmouth tomorrow, you bet your bottom dollar I would.
Yeah.
100%. I love the Seacoast. I love Portsmouth. Another incredible community.
You guys are doing a great job in Manchester, and I clearly have so much more to do there. When I say I've been there a half dozen times, I mean I've been to the Goat in Manchester a half dozen times, which is the best goat of all the goats. That place is amazing. Yeah. If you haven't been to the Manchester Goat, strongly suggest you check it out. We could talk about Manchester all day. Let's talk about the Corinne Benfield backstory. Mm-hmm. You were an artist by trade. You went to school for arts, right?
I did. And I don't think I'd say I'm an artist by trade. I followed my passions after high school. I went to Savannah College of Art and Design. I have a BFA in painting, which is a little bit misleading because I was not painting every single day in college. I did a lot of like career development work for artists and a lot of work like understanding the art market and dealing, and explored the opportunity to be a gallerist at some point. So though I created art in college, and I do here and there, but still, I never really like wanted to be a freelance artist. I always wanted to support artists and elevate creative opportunities and creative people and integrate that into the economy a bit more. And so, my like goal was to graduate SCAD, move to New York City and work at a gallery and connect with high net worth clients that I could convince to buy artists' work that I like. That was my goal. But now I'm the collector and
Yes.
I collect my friends' art. But yeah, pivot.
So you did end up moving to New York City for how long?
So if anybody knows Savannah, Georgia, very quintessential, beautiful, like walkable town, just idyllic.
The Portsmouth of the South, I hear.
Exactly. Portsmouth of the South. Like you want like slow living. I think maybe I'm a bit like brazen or unhinged because I left Savannah sight unseen, moved to Brooklyn, like Bushwick, Brownsville, Brooklyn.
Had you been to the city before?
I like had visited. I have like family in the West Village.
Okay.
The West Village is not Bushwick, Brownsville. So I moved sight unseen and moved in with like one of my closest friends, and we had an amazing 5 days, and then I left. And I moved back home. Well, I moved back home to Manchester for a hot second to just like, I was hoping it would be a hot second just to figure out like, okay, New York is not the vibe for me. I very quickly realized what assets, like what factors, contribute to my perception of quality of life, and being connected to nature was like very clearly something I was missing where I had moved to. So I was like, okay, New York's not it. Like maybe I'll go to Asheville, maybe I'll go to Denver, maybe I'll go to LA, but ended up going back to Manchester. And then I started to see New Hampshire with like a fresh perspective and new eyes, and, decided that like, actually, I love where I'm from. I love what this state has to offer me as a young person, and I can do great things here.
Okay.
So
I have so many questions. All right. So you're
Hit me.
5 days in New York City.
Yes.
What did you get up to in these glorious 5 days? I mean, you had been dreaming about this place for artists, for entertainers, for media people. Like, this is the place to be.
Like, you're so right. You're so right. You're so right. I didn't get up to much, have to be honest. I have gone back to New York City, and I love New York City, and I love the museums, love the galleries, love the creative outlets, and, everything that you can experience in like a 15-minute window in the city is like, yeah, it's just unlike any other place. The 5 days I was there though, I could not get to the subway. Like I couldn't navigate. There was just like, there was some fear there, but it was more so just feeling like an overwhelming feeling of like, this is not right for me. And so I ended up realizing that within like the first 2 days. And then I just started
job
searching. And
so you did not have a job there.
I did not. I moved sight unseen, unhinged.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, shoot the moon, right? Follow your dreams. That's what I was going for. And it was one of those moments where it's like, you just have a gut feeling and you have to act on it. And like, don't apologize. Don't apologize for making mistakes, because to me, this wasn't a mistake. It led me to where I am now. And I have maybe an unhealthy lack of fear of failure. I don't really consider failure. It is just information, new information that you then you have the privilege of incorporating into your next step. Yeah.
I love that. Does any part of you feel any bit of regret or wanderlust for these other places, the Denvers and the Asheville's and the New Yorks of the world, that you haven't lived there?
No, actually. No, because what New Hampshire has to offer somebody like me who, like, I love to travel. I love exploring new cities. I love learning new things. I love learning new languages. Like, I am very curious. I'm like insatiable for new experiences. So what New Hampshire has to offer somebody like me is a jumping off point that is unlike any other you can get in this country, in my opinion. I actually feel by being in New Hampshire, I feel removed enough and connected enough that that balance is really rewarding. So, for example, my favorite city in the whole world is Paris. I can get to Paris from, Boston like under 6 hours,
New Hampshire, the gateway to Paris.
Exactly. 100%. It's true. Like I have friends like on the West Coast and it is a whole different ballgame.
That's true.
It doesn't feel as accessible. And for me, I'm like, direct flight to Charles de Gaulle. Yeah. See you in 6 hours.
Wow. That's the case for New Hampshire. I've never heard before. I love that.
I'm glad. If that takes off, I'm glad to coin it for sure. The gateway to Paris.
Yeah. All right. Delta sponsor the podcast. It makes sense. All right. So from your New York City experience, 5 days, you get back to New Hampshire and realize, maybe there is an opportunity for me. I'm dying to know because I know this was the case in my hometown in upstate New York. Our goal was to get as far away from home as possible for college and from, the rest of our lives. If you go back home, you're a loser.
Totally.
Did you feel that way before? Did you think I have to get away from here? If I stay here, I'm a loser. And when you got back, did you think I'm going back home after being my failure in New York City? Yeah. Am I a loser?
Well, I think yes, I am a loser for sure. Just like baseline. But no. So I totally had that same like master narrative in my head going through high school, in New Hampshire. And I love sunshine and I have like a significant vitamin D deficiency. So like winters are really hard for me. So when I was in high school, I was like, absolutely, I'm using this as an opportunity to GTFO and go somewhere that's new that I can experience. And I also have to be honest, I think I have a pattern in my life. I didn't even tour Savannah College of Art and Design. I didn't even visit Savannah. I went sight unseen and I was like, Georgia is warm. I love art. I love creative careers. This professor is going to, be in my world. Like, hell yeah, let's do it. So yeah. So, I totally understand the drive and the desire to like get out of your hometown. I think that's very prevalent in New Hampshire. I don't think it's unique. I think most small towns probably like that's probably like the baseline. But I think in New Hampshire, because we don't effectively showcase and affirm young people that they're wanted here by investing in our higher ed system, by seeing a state investment in or state funding or support for pathways for young people to afford to go to college here in a way that like makes it hard to choose somewhere else. Like, I think it's a little bit more prevalent here because young people are like, if you're not going to showcase to me why I should stay in New Hampshire, why would I stay? What's here for me other than family, other than, maybe some community that you've made throughout your K through 12 life. But that all being said, I definitely did not feel like a loser coming back. And I also think that the folks that grew up here, chose to stay here, deserve a lot of credit because they fought against some really significant, some significant narratives that could certainly be headwinds. But, some of the lifers, that I've met, have demonstrated, a level of resilience that is so important for this state and have also demonstrated like a desire to move the needle in areas that they care about. And so, yeah, I just wanted to shout out to like all of the young people that have like chosen to stay in New Hampshire and grew up here because they're demonstrating that it is cool. It is worthwhile. It is valuable to care about your home state, to care about your hometown, and to invest your time and energy into growing it, whatever that looks like for you. Coming back, I didn't feel like a loser. I was like really excited to explore the state now with like my like beer goggles off, essentially my high school beer goggles off, where I was just looking for negatives, It's cold. It snowed again. I need to shovel my driveway, like whatever. So I ended up like just putting on my Andy DeMeo optimism glasses and
Host of Granite Goodness. Shout out Andy.
Yeah, shout out Andy. And saw New Hampshire just like fresh perspective. And so I actually was really excited to, re-enter the community, re-enter the state, and like attempt to be a mover and shaker, attempt to, be somebody that like positively contributed to my hometown and, made my state proud. And I found my footing at the Courier Museum of Art, which is a world-class, globally recognized collection of fine art. Global collection.
What kind of artists are we talking about here?
So the Courier's collection runs the gamut. I would not call them only an American museum. They have a really varied collection. Just some highlights. I'm going to say we.
Yeah.
We.
Honorary.
Of course. We have a Picasso.
Ooh.
That's typically on display if it's not on loan. A Monet. We have an incredible Georgia O'Keeffe, but also like the contemporary collection is exquisite. And there's a really, really significant European and Dutch collection as well. And so I shout out the Courier because for me, as somebody that like wanted a career in the fine arts, New Hampshire is not the state that I thought of originally. Obviously, I moved to Brooklyn, but when I like was reintroduced to the Courier, I was like, oh my goodness. No, this collection is accessible. I can get up close and personal with a Marisol. I can like talk to the curator. Like it was such an important part of like my placemaking. And I bullied my way into the Courier. I was like, this is the only place that I will work in New Hampshire. I sent incessant emails to, shout out Bruce. He's one of the curators at the museum. Because my friend used to babysit his kids and she gave me his email and I just was insatiable. He probably like put me on like a no-fly list or something, but ended up getting an interview, whatever. But also like that is like so indicative of New Hampshire. Like I reached out to a curator's babysitter who I went to high school with to get a job. It's perfect.
Coming up, the very New Hampshire way that Corinne finds day work play, and the biggest issues in New Hampshire that her organization is trying to solve. That's in a moment. But if you're a woman building something meaningful, the kind of business that keeps you up at night because the stakes are real, this one's for you. This month's sponsor is a longtime friend of the show, Jennifer Wilder. Jen is the founder and CEO behind multiple seven-figure hospitality brands right here on the Seacoast, like Laney & Lou and Ginger Fox. Over more than a decade as an entrepreneur, Jen has built standout products, incredibly strong company cultures, and brands that people around here genuinely love. For years, Jen has quietly helped women on the Seacoast do the same, but now she's taking it up a notch. Jen works with founders whose businesses are growing. Revenue's up, opportunities are coming in, but the systems, profitability, team structure, or even their own mental bandwidth hasn't quite caught up yet. When you work one-on-one with Jen, you're not just talking about spreadsheets and strategy. You're working on the leader behind the business too, because if you're not operating at your best, the company will soon feel it. Jen's sessions aren't performative masterminds or surface-level networking groups. The work is intimate, honest conversations happen, courage gets built, and when the structure gets fixed, the profits tend to follow. So, if what I'm describing resonates with you as much as a Laney & Lou superfood donut does with me, here are two ways you can get involved. First, Jen offers ongoing one-on-one advisory work for women building serious companies. Secondly, she's hosting an event called the Altitude Salon on April 21st, a one-day CEO council bringing together a curated group of Seacoast women who are actively scaling businesses and carrying real responsibility inside their organizations. If either of those sound like something that you need right now, the private advisory work, the Altitude Salon, or both, you can visit thejenniferwilder.com/Seacoast Stories to get $100 off Jen's private advisory package or your seat at the table for the Altitude Salon. Again, that's thejenniferwilder.com/Seacoast Stories to lock in your $100 off.
when was the first time you caught wind of Stay Work Play?
Okay, so Stay Work Play has literally always been a part of my New Hampshire story as an adult, young adult. When I came back to the state in like 2015, I was having lunch after an interview at the Courier. I know exactly what I was wearing. Really cute shoes on and like polka dot socks. It was cute. But I was sitting outside at Mint Bistro, which doesn't exist anymore. They were amazing. But I was sitting outside at Mint and looking at like Bridge and Elm. And there was a big billboard at the time right on that intersection that said Stay Work Play. And I remember like seeing that, looking up Stay Work Play and being like, what? Oh my God. Like there is an organization in New Hampshire that literally exists in order for me to stay here. That was significant for me because as we talked about like master narratives and mindset and like funding matching values, you know, one could make the conclusion if you didn't know about some of the other programs happening throughout the state or other, you know, initiatives happening through the state that New Hampshire kind of doesn't care if you stay or go or you know, live free or die, like leave us alone, whatever. And that was kind of that was my perception coming back. But I was like, oh, I'm going to like, you know, take the bull by its horns. So it was really affirming for me to see an organization that existed to ensure that I succeeded in New Hampshire, and that platformed my perspective at tables that like I couldn't get to, or wasn't invited to, or might not have even known about. So so Stay Work Play has always been a part of my story. And then, yeah, we worked with Stay Work Play at the Courier pretty significantly. We hosted the Rising Stars Awards a few times. So got to work with a few iterations of their team on that event. And yeah, every single Stay Work Play event that I was a part of, like always just had like great vibes, great new faces. Certainly a really important partner to have for a museum that is actively looking to like build up a young audience. So yeah, I've just always really respected the mission of Stay Work Play, and clearly I care pretty deeply about it. So yeah.
So how did the opportunity to become their executive director come about?
I think this is probably like a lot of people's story is like when you take a jump from something that you're really comfortable in, which for me was like the art world, like very comfortable in the art world, very comfortable like working with the Courier and kind of knew I just like had my footing there. But again, like pretty unhinged, like I don't have a lot of fear. So this opportunity came up and I was looking at the job description. I was looking at the board and it like kind of hit me. I actually sent the role to a few colleagues who was like, oh, you'd be perfect for this. Oh, I want to see you in this role. And then after I sent it to like 5 people, I was like, oh, wait, actually, I think I'm going to apply. And, you know, I had a little bit of an imposter syndrome because, you know, Will was so effective and he'd been there for 7 years. And I was like, oh my God, what shoes to fill, right? But yeah, I mean, I just went through the process super authentically and, you know, with, you know, eyes wide open. And, you know, also like I feel really comfortable in a leadership position. And yeah, and I vibed with our board too. We have an incredible board of directors who govern the organization, not only responsibly, but strategically and expansively. And like, we just vibed. And so it was a really rewarding process, not because I also learned a lot about the organization through the process. I worked with a lot of, you know, partners in the Stay Work Play orbit and, you know, pressure tested what my impact could be at the organization from their perspective and got a lot of like validation. And yeah, so it wasn't like it was presented to me. It was like this moment where I had to like take a leap. It definitely like is like, I don't have a political science background. Like, you know, I'm a lobbyist now, but
yeah,
like, you know, it just was like, I was like, they're never going to hire somebody with a BFA in painting and like a master's in arts administration. But that experience, like my educational experience has been so beneficial to like my leadership because like I can withstand 90-minute critiques. Fine. Like I have a strong backbone and like as a creative, like you can see things a little bit differently and innovate in a way that I think, you know, has benefited me, but I think has also benefited the org too.
Yeah. Well, good thing you have a strong backbone because I will critique you for 90 minutes in a later portion of the show.
Thank you.
So get ready for that. Did any part of you have you mentioned the word imposter syndrome. I mean, you're 32 now. So when you started this role, 30, 31, did any part of you feel I'm too young to be an executive director?
Like, no, of course, no. Listen, I have always subscribed to the belief that young voices deserve to be in positions of leadership. So it never tripped me up. Also, like, being an organization that supports the demographic that I also inhabit right now in my life, like, I think it's a really important connection. So I felt really confident. In the process. I felt really confident in like my alignment and what I could bring to the table for the organization. And, I think the age factor has really only been apparent when I'm like at the state house or in certain rooms. Like, I tend to be the youngest person for the majority of the time, but it's so great when I like go and like speak to students on campus, because like I'm not the young one. And so it's so fun. And I get to be like seen as like, like an elder leader. And it's just kind of wild. Yeah. And like if I can be the type of leader like I want to be, and the type of leadership that I try to emulate is like, I try to be as accessible and authentic as possible. And like, I mess up all the time, and like, that's okay. Again, learning moments. And so, I've really enjoyed being in a position of leadership as a young person, because I think there is proof of concept now that like give young people a shot, because they will blow you out of the water. I'm very much so an advocate for building your succession plans early, building leadership pipelines early for your young talent, and making sure that as an employer, as an organization, you're actively building visual pathways for young people to align within your organization. And they will be able to progress, and they will show up, and they will show out for sure. So great question.
I love everything you just said. I'm very interested in the younger generations and how they're doing in today's world. And I'm sure I'll butcher the stats, but I remember hearing something recently that for the first time ever, this generation is doing worse than their parents.
Yeah.
And so there's definitely a lot of young people who are struggling. I mean, we know about the financial burdens that college has placed on young people. We know what COVID did to young people psychologically. We know that young people are addicted to their screens, and social media is harming them. There's all sorts of things that are plaguing these younger generations that perhaps our parents' generations didn't have to deal with. But it sounds like, despite all that, you are very bullish on the generation that's coming up and how talented they are and how much promise they have.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think adversity can be a benefit. It can be, just because this next generation, especially Gen Z, like I focus a lot of my time on Gen Z. And so those are the folks that are like up to 27 right now, 27, 28. Yes, they've gone through a lot. I mean, imagine being in high school and going through a global pandemic, like the amount of like fear that instills in like a young mind,
the milestones you miss.
Yeah. Prom, like I give that generation a lot of credit, because the young people that I've interacted with, I'm a millennial, so whatever. Like the Gen Z folks losers. See, I told you I was a loser. But like the Gen Z folks that I've interacted with, despite everything, have optimism. They're optimistic. They, their goals look different because they've adjusted. So, I think home ownership is not at the same level of a milestone as it has been for previous generations. And so, when we're looking at the upcoming generation and being like, oh, you're different for X, Y, and Z reason, I see them as like, you've innovated for X, Y, and Z reason, and we need to adjust in order to in order to support your pathways that look different than our generation. And that's okay. So like our quality of life survey data, which is like a core function of our organization, launched in November. So it's still very relevant. But what we saw specifically with the 18 to 26-year-old set is that they are more optimistic about New Hampshire. They feel really good about the quality of life in New Hampshire. And then we asked a few questions specifically around how do you perceive value in a higher ed institution and career pathways? So like the opportunity to exit college or exit higher ed or post-secondary and have a job or have at least a pathway that you can count on. That is by and large how they're valuing, their investments in themselves. And I think that is extremely promising. Whereas like if I had answered that question at that age, I probably would have been like, the location of the school or like the reputation of the school. Not so much like, is this an investment that will pay off in the end? Like, I just wasn't thinking that way. I mean, there's a lot of privilege wrapped up in that too, but like, I think the next generation, I give them a lot of grace, but I also give them a lot of kudos because, they are the first, us too, millennials and Gen Z are the first generations to financially not be doing better than previous generations. And, I think with that, one can get wrapped up in frustration and, get angry that like the promise or what you were promised at a young age is no longer applicable. But I don't think that that's the norm. I think what we're seeing is, an adjustment and, young people are just thinking differently about how they perceive success. And I think, what I see a lot of times is that, we have more generations in the same workforce now than ever. We have Gen Z and boomers working together. And one can see a lot of friction because there's disparate realities there. But I will say, like, there's a lot of opportunity to, bridge some gaps and find commonality. And, part of our mission is to really ensure that, yes, we serve 18 to 40-year-olds, but issues that affect young people have ripple effects across generations, across ages. And so, one thing we like to do is help educate other generations on how young people are making decisions, how they're perceiving quality of life differently than past generations, because it's important information to understand. Whereas you could probably chalk up workplace culture, Gen Z workplace culture, like success to Gen Z. This is a general statement, but like it looks different, right? They're clocking out at 5.
Yeah.
They're outie at 5. I don't blame them. The system doesn't work for them right now. You're not going to become a millionaire by clocking until 6, essentially, is like the mindset, right? And so, but other generations see that and they're like, oh, that's a little bit lazy.
Yeah. And
so it's just a disconnect, I think. And we're working on it.
Yeah. So previous generations, I mean, their goals were, I want to buy a home. That's the fastest way to wealth. I want to get married. I want to have children. I basically want to have my entire life figured out by the time I'm 32 or whatever.
Right.
And for a lot of people, that is just not, for young people, that is just not within reach.
No.
So how are their goals changing? When you talk to the young folks of New Hampshire, what are they saying are their goals?
Yeah. So we just wrapped Policy in Pines, which is our listening series. It's a tailwind from the Quality of Life survey. It's how we capture lived experience regionally from young people in a way that it's qualitative. It's, more intimate. And so it was a very interesting and rewarding series. And I will say, I just learned a lot about how young people are making those decisions and what they're valuing. And, I don't want to say home ownership or raising a family or, being successful in your career is no longer a marker of success for young people. However, there is an understanding that it is much more difficult now than ever before. So for example, we were in Enfield, an Upper Valley and Sunapee stop. And we were talking about childcare and we were talking about goals and we were talking about, what it's like to raise a family in the Upper Valley region. And we had a conversation with one young person who was like, I would love to have kids. I would love to raise my kids here. I would love to start a family here. But it feels as impossible as me landing on Mars. And like, there were some laughs, but she wasn't kidding. And, I think when I say that to some people, it's like, oh, that's very dramatic. But I mean, I think that is really explicitly shows the mindset right now that like, if you're only making, I think it's $62,000 is the average salary in New Hampshire. That's the average, right? So if you're making $62,000 and the average cost of childcare is just under $30,000, and then housing is at least 40% of your salary at this point, if you're lucky, like, yeah, that seems freaking impossible. Yeah. So I don't know. Obviously, we're seeing a decline in birth rate. Right. Many factors go into that, but I think, young people are making decisions with eyes wide open, and like fiscal impact is like really significant. Mm-hmm. I talk to a lot of young people about like what does sustainable housing look like for them in New Hampshire? And, they might be renting right now and they're like, I am 28. I've literally been in a 1-bedroom studio apartment for 10 years. Like, I would like to buy a home and stay in New Hampshire long term and invest in my community and grow a garden and, be a contributor, like be a contributor in that way, like in that level. And it just seems like, the response is like, it's not possible in New Hampshire. And so it's not possible to take that next step and to like have the mobility and trajectory, like upward trajectory throughout the housing pipeline and market. And so a lot of the conversations around housing we're having is like, I understand that I'm not going to buy a 3-2 as a 30-year-old. Like I understand that. So what are alternatives? Cottage courts, townhomes, tiny house villages, manufactured housing. Young people are really open to and have a strong appetite for creative development as alternative pathways to successful home ownership. And if New Hampshire is not willing to have a conversation about creative, innovative housing infrastructure, young people are literally going to move to South Carolina because they can own a 3-2 in South Carolina easily, and with access to a remote work market too, like it makes the decision much easier. Mm-hmm. I will always stand on business for New Hampshire. New Hampshire has a way better quality of life than South Carolina. However, we can't, like, that is a lazy value proposition. Yeah. Like just to rely on like proximity to natural resources and, like we need to do more.
How tiring is it talking about housing all of the time? Because I know by far and away that's the number one reason why young people are either being driven away from the state or choosing not to stay.
It's only tiring when you have to talk to people who don't want to be a part of the solution, who don't see and will never see the value in incentivizing a balancing of our human ecology in New Hampshire, because it gets meta. It honestly, like housing in particular is a tangled web issue, but on a meta level, New Hampshire has not adopted a growth mindset, certainly not in the recent history. And, we need to refocus and be future focused. And so I don't get annoyed talking about housing because it's so important. And I don't get tired with the housing conversation because we need to keep the foot on the pedal. Yeah. We need to keep the foot on the gas. Like it is not, we are seeing new housing development happening. We're seeing, somewhat of like a softening in the market, or at least like a rebalancing in the market. However, Seacoast just hit the average sales $1 million. Like that's an all-time high. Like that's ridiculous. We were all up in arms last summer. Yeah, of course not. Sell my freaking firstborn. I don't know. Like the fact that we think that the fact that anybody can think that there is no housing crisis baffles me. And
who thinks that?
I can't name names, my friend, but let me tell you. There is a subset.
You spend a lot of time in Concord. You spend a lot of time in legislative rooms. Yeah. And there's people in these rooms who say like, this isn't a problem.
Yeah. Or just this is my perspective, right? Like the opposition to pro housing solutions would say that they are pro local control. And that's really the narrative that's happening here is like, we're at a time in our life as a community, as a state where the issues we're dealing with are across the state. It's not locally driven issues. And so to take a local approach to solving the housing crisis is just not going to be successful. We need a state-led strategy. And so the legislation that's been on the table last year and this year, last year we saw a lot of movement in housing policy that just, pulled some levers that are important, like land use reform and some zoning reform and just some like softening of definitions too, and like studies too. So we saw some progress. This session is there's a lot of defense that we're playing now, a lot of like revisions from that progress. And so housing does capture a lot of attention. It takes up a lot of my time. It is extremely important. And what keeps me sane is that it is also a meta issue. Because if I'm only reading bill text about housing, I would be unhappy.
I can't believe that New Hampshire hasn't adopted a growth mindset when annually and all the studies that come out about best places to live, and New Hampshire's always at the top of the list. I remember you mentioned your guy, Mike Skelton. I remember hearing him just hype up New Hampshire saying, we rank like second in the country in innovation and we're top 5 in here and here and here. And no one would ever expect that. Why isn't New Hampshire capitalizing on this incredible momentum that we've built in the past few years, which, COVID helped draw a lot of people here as well. Once they realize, New Hampshire's not just Hickville, USA. It's actually a pretty sweet place to be. Absolutely.
Cow Hampshire. It's so funny. I don't know. I think like New Hampshire is like having an identity crisis right now, which like I kind of like like that chaos a bit, because it gives us an opportunity to just capitalize on the chaos is a ladder. Actually, Mike Skelton says that. But
chaos is a ladder.
Chaos is a ladder. It's a Tyrion Lannister quote.
Let's unpack that one.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Chaos is a ladder. But okay, we're in an identity crisis, right? Because we have like conflicting narratives, right? Like, I think there are a lot of people in New Hampshire who, love and, value the rurality of our state. I certainly fall into that camp. I think it's really important that we have preserved land, that we have access to the outdoors, that nature is integrated into our way of life. That is a very New Hampshire aspect. But then you balance that with number 2 in innovation. And that's hugely important too. Like, we are a growth area for burgeoning industry, which filters into career opportunities across the spectrum. What I think is important to know is that New Hampshire is ripe for opportunity. It is a state where you can make a difference in, no matter what that means to you. And so, when we look at national rankings, we just got number 1 healthiest state in the country.
Really?
I know. I love that. Healthiest.
Okay.
Healthiest.
I wouldn't have guessed that. Meaning what? What makes us so healthy? Like, we're
fit.
Least amount of obesity.
I think there are a few factors. I don't think it's just obesity. I think it's like a few health factors that kind of like filter into that. But definitely like fitness, definitely like I think quality of air quality too.
I mean, here's a great example. I mean, here we are in the West End of Portsmouth. I can throw a rock at like 6 forms of fitness right now where I'm sitting.
Yeah. And I think there's like a mindset too, where like New Hampshire attracts a certain type of person. And I think that's the important part of like understanding our identity. New Hampshire does not need to be Vermont. New Hampshire does not need to be Maine. New Hampshire does not need to be Massachusetts. We've built our identity up until this point based on being other than the states in our proximity. We are better than Mass because of X, Y, and Z. We're better than Vermont because of X, Y, and Z. We're better than Maine because of X, Y, and Z, versus standing on business, 10 toes down, saying, this is who we are. You decide if we're better. I don't care about these other states. You decide if you align with what New Hampshire has to offer. And so the fitness piece, like New Hampshire attracts a certain type of person, somebody that wants to be connected to nature, who wants to have seasonal outdoor activities, who wants to enjoy, the weather, who, who also like wants to be connected to community in a way that feels like really authentic and not disparate or overwhelming. So I just don't think we need to, like oversell ourselves, because we're already attracting the type of person that is going to be successful here intangibly. We need to move the levers so that tangibly and fiscally, those people are able to make New Hampshire work.
You mentioned Policy and Pints. This is one of your programs that you do, and you attended good old Loaded Question at the beginning of December, at the end of 2025. And within the room, you came up with a list that is posted on your website. The reasons why people of the Seacoast, you do this all across the state. This was the Seacoast one. Why young professionals stay here. Easy access to beaches and variety of outdoor recreation options, natural beauty, historic buildings, and just overall charm of the Seacoast, and a thriving small business environment with plenty of third spaces, including a great brewery and retail scene, which, I co-sign on all that. All of those things are what people say when we talk about why the Seacoast is so amazing.
Yeah.
The not so amazing parts, the lack of access to affordable housing for the next generation. Been there, done that.
Yep.
Salaries not keeping up with cost of living, need to job search or work out of state, lack of affordable childcare, limited career mobility with a lack of industry diversity. Of the cons I just listed there, what are you most fired up about?
So I'm going to give you two answers to that question. So I think overall, the gap between salaries you're able to make in New Hampshire across regions and then what the cost of living, the average cost of living is within the regions came up. That was a common theme throughout every single stop on our tour. So I'm fired up about that for sure, because we used to be able to say we're a cost-effective alternative to living in Boston, but without progress, we're inching very close to Boston, greater Boston prices, certainly in the Seacoast. And so I think what was really enlightening about our conversation in the Seacoast, also shout out Loaded Question. They were incredible partners. Also, Seacoast had the highest attendance.
Damn right we did.
Yep.
We care.
Yep. You guys care. And it was a really, really awesome conversation. But the diversity of industry and the working outside the market conversation was really tricky, because almost every single attendee that came to the event lived in the Portsmouth area, but worked in Boston or worked remotely in Boston.
Oh, wow.
Because the commonality was, I can't afford, I can't find a job that can pay me enough to afford to live here. So I have to look outside the market, which for anybody, any organization who's interested in economic development workforce and understands the type of issue we have here, another BIA stat to throw at your people, but New Hampshire has the oldest workforce in the country. 28% of our workforce is 55 and older. That being,
wow.
What that says is that we have a human ecology issue. We have a workforce issue. And so for us to hear directly from young people who are like, I work in Boston to live here. Like, that is workforce displacement in a nutshell. Business follows workforce. And that's what we're going to see. We're going to see businesses exiting this market if we don't create pathways for our workforce, for our residents to be able to work in the communities that they inhabit. That was pretty unique to Seacoast as far as like, also the diversity of industry in the area. That conversation was really rooted in like, again, like that draw to the greater Boston area. Somebody that's like, interested in entrepreneurism or tech, or VC, like, there's a monster to the south that's like pretty accessible and you can just, flow into Boston. Whereas in Portsmouth and the Seacoast region, like, like financial services and like service-based industry was shared as like the main opportunity. And so one of the solutions was to affect that was to like just work a little bit harder on diversifying the types of businesses and employers that take root in the region.
Coming up, young people's struggles in the local dating scene and the 3 New Hampshire problems that Corinne wants to solve as soon as possible. But first, a place that has 0 problems at all because it's absolutely perfect is Portsmouth's Oomph Salon. Oomph Salon has been a true fixture here in Portsmouth for over a decade, built on incredible hair, a strong internal culture, and an experience that feels elevated without ever being intimidating. They specialize in custom color, blonding, precision cuts, extensions, and curl services. Basically everything that you would want dialed in before a night out in the West End. I'm talking Mojo's, Louis, Botanica, or our newest neighbor, Nisi. Oomph Salon is also the highest rated salon in all of New England on Google. That doesn't happen by accident. That kind of rating comes from years of consistency, trust, and clients who keep coming back. Their team is made up of career-driven, highly trained stylists who are constantly learning and growing, and you can feel that the moment you walk through the door. And here's a pro tip. Oomph offers $45 happy hour haircuts Tuesday through Thursday from 2 to 5 p.m. for same-day calls only. Perfect if you've got a little flexibility in your schedule and want top-tier work at an unbeatable price. And then maybe you come join me at Otto for happy hour after. I love getting the margaritas there. To learn more or to book your next appointment, head to oomph.salon.
Young people in the state, one of the big pain points for them as well is the social life. It's making friends, it's the nightlife, it's the dating scene. All of that is harder for them to come by in New Hampshire. Why are these pain points for young people in the state?
So funny because like our mission, obviously, like we're very literal. Stay, work, play.
Yeah.
Literally, that is what we want. We want you to stay. We want you to work here. We also want you to play here. And so I feel like our like little ugly stepchild is the play area of our mission, but not for me. I subscribe to the fact that play is vital to our retention strategies, our attraction strategies, and certainly dating comes into play here. But again, on this listening tour for Policy and Pints, but also just like in the field naturally, I consistently hear from young people that they go to Boston to have a night out. They go to Boston to date. They go to Boston to watch a sports game. They are commuting outside of their communities, outside of their towns, outside of this state to meet other young people. And that's common. And, it's also a huge risk because if you are enjoying your life outside of the state that you live in, because that's what play is, right? Maybe I'm like unique in that, but like I am motivated by play. I am motivated by having fun. And I think that's pretty common for young people too. Like if you are consistently getting reinforcement that greater Boston area, like has more opportunity to meet people, to meet friends, to meet a partner, to have an experience, to have an Instagrammable moment, to like be in community, to be in a crowd, like why not move there? Why not move there? If you meet somebody, you're more likely to relocate and, live your life with that person. So play is very important, just as far as a retention strategy goes. So for New Hampshire and my perspective where stay, work, play can be effective is just highlighting the importance of third spaces. That includes Stash Box for our espresso martini.
Yes, can't wait.
Yeah. But it also includes like my volleyball league. It includes
Seacoast Stories Dinner Club. It includes Prescott Park. It includes the CAP Center. It is really important for us to promote, support, celebrate the cool experiential opportunities that New Hampshire communities have to offer. Right.
And, to be a bit brazen with, I think of Portsmouth Rave Project,
Yeah.
Yeah. Love those guys.
I need to go to one of those. It's on my bucket list for this year.
It's on my bucket list. I think I aged out. Like, I don't know.
Let's hit the rave this year.
Okay,
Corinne.
we're going to get espresso martinis and we're going to go to Portsmouth Rave Project. But like, I think of them and I'm like, hell yes. I am so glad that, this group like did something that they wanted to do and it caught fire. Like we need to really celebrate the type of leadership that requires in our communities. And certainly we tell that to our city leaders, to our state leaders, that like you should be open to new ideas.
Yeah.
Because we need those spaces more so now than ever.
For sure. Next time you're talking to the legislators, tell them at Dinner Club, we just had 100 people in Newmarket, New Hampshire.
Oh my goodness.
We're doing Dover next week. I mean, this episode comes out after this. So, I mean, we currently have like 80 people signed up. We'll probably have like 100. So like we're regularly getting like 50 to 100 people out for these things every couple weeks.
But that, and like, I think that approach too is like, that's rooted in like a desire and like need to connect authentically with people versus like that like social media connection points. Like obviously like have consumed your content for a long time. Like I was like, oh, I know Troy like through social media, but now like there is a very important quality to like being in person with somebody, looking them in the eyes and like having like vulnerable dialogue.
Absolutely.
So like I definitely like, I'm so glad, I'm not surprised and so glad that the Dinner Club is like, again, catching fire too.
Yeah.
And like, that is proof of concept for third spaces.
Yeah. So going back to what you said a few minutes ago, young people think they have to go to Boston to date. Why do they think that?
I don't know. Like maybe the variety of,
just numbers game.
I think maybe numbers game, but like there's also something there about like seeing yourself reflected in community. And so I am also going to call out the lack of diversity that is demonstrated in New Hampshire, demonstrated, celebrated, right? So like, because we have a diverse population more so now than ever before in the state. However, those different cultures need to be reflected. And so I think there's a little bit of that too. And then just like speaking like demographically too, like you talked about like Manchester kind of like trying to rally against this narrative, this reputation. New Hampshire also has some of those staid reputation factors that old and cold. Old and cold. That's our state motto, apparently. Old and cold. No young people live here. We're the oldest state, all white. We're the second oldest state in the country. And so when you're fed that narrative through like social media, whatever, certainly like we say those things too, because some of them are true and it like serves a purpose. But like if that narrative is reinforced as a young person, like you're not even going to think of New Hampshire as a viable dating pool because you're not seeing yourself reflected in your community. You're not seeing a proliferation of young people in your daily life because you're not in all of these, or you don't have daily access to third spaces in the way that like, some other communities, I would say to the south of us probably have cultivated. And so, I mean, I think Portsmouth is pretty unique in that like, if you're living downtown, you are seeing a lot of young faces. It's a pretty young city. Yeah. There's a lot of opportunity to just like have a meet cute, have a organic interaction with another young person and be like, oh, that person was cool. Like, I think I'm cool. Like maybe I do belong here. Right. But that's not the case everywhere throughout the state.
Yeah. I'll say so in Boston. And I love how you just kind of like keep like, are we going to say Boston or are we just going to take some jabs?
Our neighbors to the south.
It's amazing. It slaps you in the face. You walk into a coffee shop, a third space, and you see 30 other 25-year-olds. Yes. Okay. You don't have to look that hard.
Right.
In Portsmouth, we have them. You just kind of have to look for it a little more. So I'll say, I don't know how much you know my story, but I moved here in 2023. My first 6 months, I was like, this place is really cool, but I don't think there's anything here for me. I don't see myself reflected in the community. Like you just said, this is cool, but I'm going to go to New York City. And then
5 days.
No, never actually made it. I broke my lease. I was all set to go. And then one thing happened, then another thing happened, and I decided to stay. And then when I decided to stay, and when I decided to, okay, I'm actually going to put myself out there.
Yeah.
I found this young people's bar crawl, this like tech workers bar
Sick.
crawl.
Nice.
Found that, met some young people there. And then just kind of started doing more things like that. And then I started this podcast once I realized I wanted to stay here. And then the floodgates just opened up. And I just kept meeting all of these amazing people who are in the 26 to 34 range.
Right.
And I now have like 25 best friends in that age range. So we're here. The ambitious ones we're here. Good people
It can
are here.
happen.
You just got to put yourself out there a little bit.
You got to put yourself out there. You also have to want it too. Like, I think you just have to want it. And also, I wonder if this is your perspective or if this was your experience, but I hear a lot from people who move here, not having grown up here. And there's a bit of like a clickiness in communities, or at least like, it's just like a little bit harder to like break into established community groups or established like friend groups. At least that's kind of like what I've heard. And I can see that. Like, I mean, I'm still like best friends with some of my high school friends, and, they live here and, we hang out, but, it's interesting to map out, like, where are those social opportunities? What's the algorithm to make it work in New Hampshire?
Yeah. If you had a magic wand as New Hampshire's biggest cheerleader and you could fix 3 things, what would they be?
I would invest in rail from Manchester, Nashua to Boston. Full stop, period.
Wait, repeat that?
I would invest in rail from Manchester, Nashua to Boston.
Okay.
Rail. Yep. So that's what I would do.
You mean a train?
A train.
Okay.
Train. Rail. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, just railway. Nothing else on it. Just rails. Would definitely do that.
Okay.
I think that would be extremely impactful for...
You just said how you want people to stay here, and you're like, no, we want to ship them to Boston.
No. We want to create a bit more osmosis between this is like so funny that like I'm like hesitating because I'm like, oh, is this partisan? But like, no, I mean, in theory, Massachusetts is literally south of us. Like there is osmosis already. So might as well like utilize proximity, which is one of our greatest assets in New Hampshire that we always talk about. So just making it easier for somebody to live in New Hampshire, but then also take advantage of all of the assets that we have. And honestly, Boston is an asset for us. However, I think we'd also get like two-way traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So rail, I would wave a magic
Boston
wand.
people come visit the Queen City.
Yeah, exactly. And then rent a car and drive to the North Country or extend rail to the North Country, whatever.
Yeah.
All that fun stuff. But I think public transportation is a really significant blind spot for us as a state and could do wonders for the next generation. So there's that.
Except C&J. We love you, C&J.
Yeah, there you go.
Go on. Number 2 thing, if you could wave a magic wand, this problem disappears.
Childcare, access to childcare, affordability of childcare is depressing. Honestly, I don't know what I would do with my magic wand, honestly, because when you look at, actually, no, I take it back. I know what I would do. Okay. I know what I would do. It is a tangled web though. So like you pull one string and the other side kind of unravels a little bit. So like give me some grace here, because I have to be short, but like what I would do to move the needle in the ECE space is to value, pay, and support our early childhood education workforce, because those are the real freaking heroes in our state, in our world. These people are extremely talented. They do an extremely important job, and it is a very hard job. Not to mention it is a razor thin margin for profit on, with the ECE model that we currently are like forced into right now. So, so I would wave my magic wand and just pay these people what they're worth, because they are worth their weight in gold. They're incredible. They're the workforce behind the workforce, and they make it possible for young families to survive in New Hampshire. They're critical. So yeah.
So to help young families survive in New Hampshire, but also, I mean, as you said, we're such an old state. The birth rate is declining. Yeah. I mean, the cost of childcare is
astronomical, is
preventing wannabe families from even starting.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can say a lot about that on it, but in theory, that's what we're dealing with. And yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame that New Hampshire isn't seen as well. Okay, actually, New Hampshire is an incredible place to raise a family. Yeah. Nationally ranked, like it is an incredible place to raise a family. But I think what we're seeing is that that's like almost like to be able to have a young family in this state is like almost a sign of like privilege and wealth. And like, there's like, there's some privilege in there because it's really hard to fiscally make it work.
Yeah.
My third magic wand wish list is more appetite and incentive products to build housing that makes sense for the landscape of New Hampshire, for communities of New Hampshire, and that fit the ideal needs of young people. And that's pretty vague, but overall, like that looks like communities and developers seeing the benefits of cottage courts, small lots, smaller houses, communal areas. That also includes manufactured housing, like I mentioned. Like manufactured housing is an incredibly important option as far as a pathway to home ownership goes for young people. Same with like, you know, I would love to see like new, like, you know, centers of you know, YP life happening in rural areas that might kind of, you know, seem like ghost towns sometimes. Like we were in Enfield, and there's an awesome brewery there called Optimistic Brewing, and they have a cute little downtown, but like there was no foot traffic when we were there. And so it's like that there are towns that like could really benefit from creating housing opportunities that incentivizes local investment in small business. And yeah, so I don't know. That's tall orders, but
it's all going to happen.
It's all going to happen.
Corinne Benfield for president, everybody. Woo. I mean, gosh, wow. No. You're so fired up. Anything else you're fired up about? Anything else you want to get off your chest?
No, you know, I just think like, again, like, you know, we talk a lot about like the issues that New Hampshire has. And obviously that's like part of my job is to like elevate those pain points and move the needle on those pain points. And sometimes I get a little frustrated because I have to spend a lot of my time on that. But, you know, I think we also like as a society need to recognize the benefits of living in New Hampshire and the assets that we have, and the quality of people that the state attracts.
Oh my God, such amazing people
that like are like willing to spend time with you, willing to knowledge share, willing to mentor you, willing to make a connection for you, no matter what. Like I think, you know, what young people respond to with our neighbors to the south is like, sure, like the social stuff and like the opportunities for stuff, but like, I'm sorry, nobody in Boston is going to connect you with that CEO because they play golf with them on Sundays. Like that's not going to happen for you, my dude. But in New Hampshire, it will. Mm-hmm. It absolutely will. And so you do need to balance that. And so I would like to kind of end my yap on a high note, which is New Hampshire is so unique, so ripe for opportunity. Young people are certainly a huge ingredient in our forward trajectory, but like, don't sleep on New Hampshire. We are the best kept secret in the state, in the country. We are the best state in the country. Can fully believe that. And yeah, I'm just like really proud of the demographic, the audience that we serve. And I'm inspired every day by our work. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm really thankful to be in this position and to be able to have conversations with you and all of the great young people that are just making shit happen.
That's Corinne Benfield, the executive director of Stay, Work, Play. To stay up to date with their latest events, you can give them a follow on Instagram @StayWorkPlay or visit their website, stayworkplay.org. If you think this podcast with Corinne would resonate with the New Hampshire young professional in your life, then we'd love it if you shared this episode with them. Each time you do that, it brings us one step closer in our mission of bringing the Seacoast closer together, one podcast at a time. I'll be back next Monday with another strong female voice in the area, but for now, thank you Jennifer Wilder and Oomph Salon for supporting this show, and thanks to all of you for listening. Have a great week. I'll talk to you soon, but until then, live free or die.